My name is Michelle Souza, and I am on faculty here as a costume designer. And I am so pleased today to welcome you to Jerrilyn Lanier Duckworth's presentation. I'll tell you a bit about her before she presents. Jerrilyn Duckworth is a multi-hyphenate creative, costume, hair, and makeup design in the theatrical space. Bridging the Gap was founded in 2019. In the fall of 2020, Jerrilyn was appointed Vice Chair of Hair and Makeup for the United States Institute for Theater Technology, or USITT. She held the post until 2023. She holds a Master of Fine Arts in Costume Design and Production from the University of Alabama. She also has a Bachelor of Arts degree in General Theater from the University of Southern Mississippi. Jerrilyn's designs have been on the stage at Pennsylvania Shakespeare Festival, People's Light, Coastal Carolina University, Indiana Repertory Theater, Ensemble Theater in Cincinnati, Oklahoma Shakespearean Festival, Indiana University, Illinois State University, and Millbrook Playhouse. Jerrilyn continues to various universities to provide seminars about hair and makeup issues that plague BIPOC students and performers in the theater industry. Bridging the Gap dives into the history of hair and makeup, wig prep on natural hair textures, correct language, products, and practical applications that would set any performer or creative artist up for success. The goal is to create an inclusive environment for all performers. Through her work, Jerrilyn has given over 300 workshops with attendance exceeding 3,500 people. So join me in welcoming Jerrilyn Duckworth.
Super excited to be here today. This is actually my second time in Ohio, but my first time at Kent State. So we're going to talk a little bit about how I use my costume design degrees and how the skills translate and how you can make money in the arts. I know that was one of the first questions that my mom asked me when I told her. I was like, Mom, I want to be like in theater. And she's like, what can you do with that degree, Jerrilyn? So we will talk about, Michelle gave me a lovely intro about me. We will talk about costume, wig, and makeup design. We'll talk about the creation of Bridging the Gap. The business side of life will conclude, and then I will take your questions at the end for me. So hold them for me, and I'm gonna leave time. I've got my timer set so I don't talk the whole 60 minutes. All right, so my education. I didn't have the traditional route headed into theater. I went to a 2-year college first, and I got all of my basics out of the way. That's your math and your sciences and all of those fascinating subjects. And so I went up the road. My original plan was to study fashion merchandising. I always loved fashion. I love telling people what to wear. You look bad, don't wear that type of deal. And so when I get to Southern Miss, they only had, let me walk that back, fashion design. They only had a fashion merchandising program. I cried through college algebra. I was like, this is still too much math. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this at all. And so my literature class, out of all the shows to fall in love with theater, I went and saw Medea of all shows. And there was this beautiful actress that was playing the title character. And I asked her, I said, who made your clothes? And she said, there's a whole costume shop upstairs. And I was like, oh my goodness, like, I gotta see what's happening, see what it's about. So that, is that me? Sound? Okay. And so my next semester of school, I went up and I did a practicum in the shop, which was pretty cool. I got to do a dance piece and I got to do a small stage show. And I was like, okay, I'm home. This is where I need to be. So after that, they told me if you want to ever teach one day or further your education, there's a master's component to design. And I was like, okay, well, I know I want to design. I'll never public speak. I will never teach anybody anything. Well, joke's on me. So I applied to grad schools. My the scenic person, Stephen Judd at Southern Miss, helped me cobble together a portfolio. He saw something in me that apparently I didn't see, and he said, I think you're gonna do well, kid, in the industry. We just gotta get you to the next step. So I interviewed. Alabama offered me a full assistantship, so I said, no student loans, that's where I'm going. And so I graduated 2009 with my bachelor's in just general theater, which I 10 out of 10 recommend that because you can get some really good experience. I always say I have the utmost respect for all areas of theater. I could never be a performer as I stand here on the stage. And I know that I get kicked out of the scene shop all the time because I have on the wrong shoes. So I know if I have to wear closed-toe shoes for the rest of, no, I'm not doing that. And lighting, I'm afraid of heights, so getting up in the grid is a no-go for me. So I love general degrees because you get to touch all areas of the space. So I trot off to Alabama. I graduated in 2012 with a Master's of Fine Art in Costume Design and Production. So for the first 5-6 years post-school, I took a job working with kids. I worked with kindergarten and first grade to pay the bills, and it was the ideal job because I could design shows in the summer. My goal was to always have one show a year on my resume to keep it current, because there's always that question of where you didn't work here, like what was happening. I was like, if I could just get on somewhere, a summer stock, and have that one show, that would be great. That'll keep me in the loop on what's happening in theater. So what does my work look like? What is my aesthetic when looking at costume design? I am a minimalist when it comes to design. I have some colleagues that can use patterns as solids. I use them as an accent. I love that in my career right now, I'm getting to do shows that reflect my heritage. I will say, leaving my grad program, I didn't have too many of them in my portfolio. So now that I've kind of worked my way up, I'm getting to work at regional theaters where I don't have to do everything. I still have to do things, but it's not like I don't have to worry about every facet of the show. There's lovely stitchers, there's cutters, there's drapers, there's lovely people to help get this production to the stage. So this was from The Ripple the Wave that carried me home at People's Light Theater up in Malvern, PA. I'd love to show this show because I had to work through 40 years of hair and makeup and costumes. I only had 5 performers that they had to cycle from 1950 up to 92. So I had to lay out everything for the director and say, hey, which she was fabulous too. I was like, her hair is important, especially when telling any story, but telling Black stories, hair is gonna put you in a moment. And so we looked at hair. I gave the performers research and all of this, and they were on board. As a child of the 90s, there were a lot of 90s references in this show. And so to throw those out there and people know what Family Matters was and know what Nick at Night and all of those cool things that I watched the first time they came on television. Some of my students will say, oh, Miss Jerrilyn, they did a reboot of some show. And I was like, I watched it the first time it came on. You're making me feel my age. But it was a lovely show, and it was lovely to tell the story of the family and to have them travel through time and to tell their stories through costuming. This one's super dark. This is Romeo and Juliet at SUNY Oswego up in New York. With my degree and with my platform, I get to travel and go to many different places. So I'm always happy to work with students up to equity performers in theater. So hair and makeup design. I fell in love with hair and makeup the second year of my graduate program. Martha Ruskine came in and she gave a workshop on hair and makeup, and she taught us how to ventilate. And so that was really cool. Ventilating is where you literally take film lace and you tie 50 million little holes into this lace, and it disappears. If it's applied correctly, and if it's color matched correctly, you won't be able to see it. And so while the rest of my grad class is like, oh my God, this is so time consuming, I'm like putting on a true crime show and like ventilating as we go. I haven't done a full lace-based wig in a while, but I had it down to like I could do 4 12-hour days to get it from start to finish. And so we use a lot of wigs, of course, in theater to transform our performers into period characters, modern day characters, a whole host of things. So this was at Indiana University, and so I wish I would have put a before picture up of what she looked like, but she was supposed to be 80s-tastic. If you think of the 80s and the big hair, that was some of the notes that I had gotten. So this is just showing kind of the many things that I like to do. I always say, if I had to do one thing, I would be bored. So this was for Flying West at Indiana Repertory Theater and just seeing how you can transform folks for stage. I was primarily hired in to do wig and makeup design for this show. Sometimes I get hired in for both. Sometimes I just get hired in for one or the other, which is great. That way my brain doesn't have to think about both and the worlds collide at the same time. So it was great. Most of the times I take a ton of photos because I have to leave. I'm there through opening, but wardrobe and different folks have to replicate and upkeep these wigs. So like I said, wardrobe to me is some of the unsung heroes of theater because the show magic continues to happen long after the designer leaves. All right, so the inception of Bridging the Gap and how did that happen? So Alabama had me back to give a workshop for 7 guitars. And so no one knew what to do with hair or makeup for the folks that were there. And so I came back and I was like, I'll put a PowerPoint together, I'll put some resources together about how to match foundations and different things like that, and hairstyles that would work for the period, and I did a workshop. Bridging the Gap didn't exist at the time. And so I said that winter, I was like, I'm just gonna start a Facebook page. I'll put information out there, I will put research, products, anything you can think of that would help alleviate the excuse of if I can't find a picture, or if I can't find a product, this won't exist. And so January 2nd of 2019, Bridging the Gap goes live. And I'm thinking, silly me, that I'm going to get to just post and be done. I'll answer people's questions and all of this stuff. By February 1st, I was overwhelmed by the response. I didn't have a website. I didn't have an email address. I was just like, oh my God, I guess I need an email. And so that's when my wheels started to turn about branding and what that looks like. It was either March or April of that same year, I was asked to give my first speaking engagement. I cried through public speaking in college, and I will leave it at that. I held on to that podium, and I was like, I'm never gonna use this. Why are you making me stand up here and talk to people? I bit the bullet and reached back out to her, and she had a good chuckle at my expense. She was like, I told you, Jerrilyn, you were gonna use these skills, and she and I keep in contact now. She'll send me articles and different things like that on public speaking, but public speaking is very much so important. So it gets me through the workshops. I always say I'm an introvert that likes people sometimes. Most of the time, sometimes. But that's just who I am. So I was telling them earlier, if you see me standing up here sweating the first 5 minutes, that's just like before I settle in and get into my groove, that's like my nerves leveling out. So I promise you I'm not sick, promise you I'm not dying. It's just my nerve defense mechanism, I guess. So I would speak through the whole year of 2019 at universities and regional theaters. COVID happened. I actually came down out of the air in December of 2019. I was actually getting married January of 2020. And my mom was like, kids, you gotta be at home. You gotta finish these last little details. Come on. So COVID happens. I work up until March of that year. And my schedule gets cleared. I was like, okay, I had such good momentum. How am I gonna keep this up? I still wanna get the information out there. Zoom happened. A friend of mine and a colleague, she said, Jerrilyn, we've been taking meetings on Zoom. I was like, what is a Zoom? Like, she's like, sign up for a free trial, and you'll see that, like, maybe this is a method that you could use for your workshops. And I was like, okay. So I posted on Facebook, would anybody like to take an online workshop with me? Again, I was overwhelmed by the flood of people that said that they wanted to take a workshop. And so that whole summer, I Zoomed through the whole summer. Zoom is another method that pays for itself with me. And so if you can't, I physically can't be everywhere that people request me to be. Sometimes people want to book at the same time. Sometimes I can't get off one plane and be on a plane the next day, because we'll talk about that a little bit later, how to schedule yourself. That's an important, because you have to take care of yourself as well. And so, workshops are always fun. I always say, for Bridging the Gap, students are at the heart of what I do. We are training the next generation of designers, which I was just 25 like 2 days ago. To think that like we have a new generation of designers and performers coming up. I love the work because everyone deserves a space where they can come in and focus on their job. They don't and shouldn't have to worry about their hair, having foundation to match, being afraid to ask questions. And so I created this space so people can ask me questions and I can direct them out. I can tell them about products. I can tell them about research, just to make sure that every performer has what they need. It was like I mentioned earlier, you can't say that you don't know. You can't say that you can't find it. We need to look at budgets and different things like that. So I have had some pushback here and there from, I would say, the more mature folks in the industry that are, well, theater was fine before you got here. Why are you trying to change it? There's nothing wrong with, equity, diversity, and inclusion in theater. And so I got not so nice emails when I first started Bridging the Gap. And it was from folks that are resistant to change. And it was one of those things where the Southern woman in me came out. It's like, bless your heart, I don't need you to tell me what I can and cannot do. Like, that was my reply to some people's emails. It was just like, bless your heart. And like, end out period. Like that, I say nothing else. Like, that's a whole sentence. No, just like no is a whole sentence. And so we 5 years in, we're still going strong. And I always say, there's no way I can still be as busy. I've been to all these places, and every year it's just like, Jerrilyn, we want you to come here, we want you to come, which is great. All excellent problems to have as a freelance individual, because at least I know 4 to 6 months down the road, I still got work coming in, along with designing shows. So this is just some cool workshops. Cal State Fullerton, some high schools too, book me as well to come in and just to make sure that their high school students have what they need. Show choir is a thing, especially down in Texas. Oh my gosh, the hairspray budgets that exist for show choirs. It's always fun to hear. I was like, you put aside how much for hairspray? And they're like, yeah, because they all have to have this, and that. And so just making sure that the hair bylaws and the hairstyles that are chosen, anybody and everybody can wear them, and that their BIPOC students shouldn't have to pay X amount of dollars to go get certain hairstyle, that there can be alternatives, that they can have a look in unison. It'll be great. So Interlochen is always fun to go to. I always say they're like their own little campus existing up in Michigan. They have top-notch facilities, and they train folks that go straight out into either college or out into the world. They get into some of the top-tier programs. So getting to talk to students on different levels, working professionals on different levels is great. Western Carolina University, Indiana University are all some of the places that I've been. WIC prep is one of the big things that I try and teach when I go places. I always say pink curls don't work for everybody. You gotta have alternatives. And I always say have a plan A, B, and have plan C hanging out into the wings, because you'll need that as well. So just making sure that folks with textured hair are taken care of alongside their counterparts that are working with them. All right, so we'll play the first video from Ohio University, and it just details kind of like what workshops look like, and I just wanted to show you, just a little small snippet so you can kind of see the happening. So ventilating, like I was saying, is a dying art form. Pretty much if someone says, we want you to ventilate a wig, it's just sitting there, tediously tying hand-tied knots. I think we'll all start out with just like a little 2-inch square and get it pinned in, and then we can start ventilating from there. I always want to have, I have more hair than I need. You know, I always want to have your hair in a loop, so you want your needle set first. You're gonna catch some hair, you make a V, and you're gonna wrap it around and twist. Once you go back through the hole, you're going to pull. You gotta train your brain for motion that you're not used to doing every day. And I always say that no question is a dumb question, it's how you ask the question. I'm finding those images, looking at photographers and looking at people from the day, how they actually wore their clothes, it's so important. You know, you need to come with more than one image if you want my hair to look a certain way. And knowing where your performer falls in those two categories is very important, because some people with natural hair make their own products. You know, people make what works for them. Lack of shave range is still something that is struggling. Fenty comes along, now everybody wants to do 40 or 50 shade ranges, knowing undertones, products, and uneven complexion. It's fully okay if you have a performer that needs to wear 2 foundations. Skincare is something I gripe on too, right up there with research. If your skincare is non-existent, don't expect your foundation to stay on. And say you're in a pinch and you can't figure out if they fall in that warm or cool category. If they look better in the stark white, they're gonna fall into the cool category. So that can also help you to inform what foundations you're going to buy. These places have good face products, eyeshadow products. It's really good. As you can both see, they're well loved. They have beautiful, colorful palettes. Just my hope is that, like, at least it'll open the conversation so people aren't afraid to say, well, what about this? Or, you know, can we work with this? Or I know my hair can do this. Or I don't think this makeup matches. Can we try this? So having the tools in your toolbox is always a good thing to have. Yes. So that's kind of what workshops look like with me. Of course, that's like a clipped version altogether. And we worked through a lot of things. So this next one, they interviewed me at Ensemble Theater in Cincinnati. As I try to hide from the camera, everybody's like, we want to talk to you. And I'm like, okay, here we go. So if you want to play that one. This is for one of the shows that we were working on. I started in Pennsylvania in the 2000s, and I looked at the factory town, people standing in line to get food vouchers, and looking at bars and people that went to bars, because the bar is such a focal point of the store, and seeing what actual people look like and knowing that, you know, money was tight, so fashion would fall by the wayside. Color palette wise, I got to see the beautiful set rendering and the production meeting. And so I was like, okay, I can go with a jewel tone color palette, something that would pop off of the brown, that would be a nice complement. But in diversity in theater, I'm always happy to see shows like this being done, because so many times they're not done, and they're important stories. Bridging the Gap, a look into African-American hair and makeup for theater, was started 3 years ago. Research and knowing how to make sure that everyone has an enjoyable experience with hair and makeup was something that was lacking. And so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna start a Facebook page, I'm gonna post a couple days a week. And so I spent hours upon hours finding research photos. It primarily started out African-American based, but I started to explore many of the beautiful cultures that make up the world. And as a young designer, you need that information. I was asked to do my first speaking engagement in 2019 and post that workshop, I had students of color that stood before me teary-eyed because they said, I've been at theater, summer stock, and I've only ever been in a hat or a scarf because nobody knew what to do with my hair or help foundation match me or anything like that. So these conversations are more important now than ever, and I want to make sure performers are supported. I can spread a message of do for one, you do for all. Alright, so that was Sweat up at the Ensemble Theater in Cincinnati. So like I said, I always try to run from the camera and everyone's like, Jerrilyn, come talk to us, talk about what's happening, talk about what you're working on and what you're doing. So I always say, I can't slough into the theater looking any kind of way, just in case. All right. Okay. All right, so talking about business and how to use your degrees and different things like that. Theater also trained me as far as dressing, looking at color theory, looking at what works. I own a photography business as well. I actually got tired of getting stage shots of my costumes that were blurry and they just show specific elements. And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna learn how to take pictures so I don't have to wait on photographs. I don't have to wait on marketing and different things like that to get pictures from the show. So I use photos for branding too. Usually if I have an assistant when I'm working away, I said, do you have a headshot for Playbill? I will shoot their headshot for them. So at least I know that they're leaving with a good first headshot. And so of course we all know what headshots cost. And so I'll go into different places too and do headshots for students that couldn't necessarily afford to have their headshots done because you can pay upwards of $300, $400, $500 for 4 or 5 headshots. And my husband always laughs. I always tell him, I wouldn't pay. What do I charge for photos? And so that was my catalyst to start like going into schools and asking like, can we do a headshot day? Can we do like students are auditioning? What do they need? And so that kind of was born out of that. My JL Photos company, Bridging the Gap, they're LLCs. And so that's one of those things where it comes to setting up a business. You run into like 1099s and different things like that, the boring things, taxes and all of that stuff. So having something that's incorporated or an LLC is important because you want to think about like how you're getting paid. If you want to apply for business credit cards and different things like that, please pay your taxes. I learned the hard way the first year of freelance and what that meant. Keeping up with expenses is definitely an important thing as well. Photography for me was just another outlet. I live in the South, Mardi Gras is prevalent. I do styling for that as well. So my costume design degree translates well. I know what looks good on people, colors that look good on people. Usually when people are in their fancy ball gowns, they want their picture taken. So those things go hand in hand, which is pretty cool. Here are some of the headshots that I do for folks. And so these two are technicians, but of course I do like performer headshots, dance headshots, anything you can think of where I can sit and point my camera, I'm always happy. And we talk about what you want to wear, and so we pick locations based off of that. And so as a photographer, a lot of my clients will hire me because they know that I'm just not going to stand, point my camera and take their picture. It is a whole experience. We talk about location, colors that'll work well for the different locations. Like we do a whole breakdown before their sessions. And so they kind of get that VIP experience with me. And these are just some folks that I've taken pictures of. I live by the beach, so everybody wants beach photos, and people will bring their dogs out, which is always fun. I'm working on how to shoot puppies because they're usually everywhere. And so learning how to at least get them to focus at the camera is always fun. So again, I use my theater degree towards lighting, clothing, and different things like that. So when I'm home, I'm doing photography. Business elements like I touched on, you'll have to decide how you want to brand yourself. Photos are important. I will say we are the social generation. How you and what you post on the internet is important. That's something that and I say it very lovingly, as youngsters, you have to be mindful that your employers look at your Facebook pages, they look at your Instagram pages, they look at all of those things. I've been on the other side for hiring purposes, and they've sent me people's socials, and I'm like, oh man, like, you got anybody else that you can send me? Because like, I've seen some troubling things or some things that like the dynamic may be not what the theater is looking for, or if I'm picking an assistant, they may send me people's socials. Also being aware of like who's on your resume, that's important too, because if you are performance-based, you may put the show that you're in and the director, and you may have 3 references at the bottom, but if somebody knows one of the directors that you've worked with, they're gonna call them. I do it all the time. I'll say, hey, have you worked with such and such? Like, I see that you're on their resume. So just having that worldly awareness that folks are looking at what you post and people are looking at who's on your resume. Tax write-offs, again, the boring numbers thing. You have to look at what you can write off. I actually found a really good tax person that specializes in like entertainment taxes, and so she's like, oh, Jerrilyn, you can write off this, you can write off that, you can write off your internet, you can write off, if you need to purchase a new computer, which my little MacBook's hanging on for dear life, and I just refuse to get a new one right now because they're so expensive, but they are an excellent travel computer for me, and they're really great too. So like I said, your write-offs, how to price yourself. I know everyone, if you're in high school or if you're just starting out in the industry in college, how to price yourself is important. I would say nobody should work for free. And I will stand on that one. Like, no one should work for free. Internships should pay you. You should not work for free. And knowing what you're worth, I will get into math and numbers, like how long does it take me to do something? What materials-wise, what can I ask for, and all of those things. So you just want to make sure that you are pricing yourself where you can live. And so like I said, I have the luxury of being booked 4 to 6 months ahead of time. So I space my work out to make sure that I have money coming in for 12 months out of the year. And so I'm at that point in my career where I can do that. And so just taking care of yourself, knowing how to schedule yourself, and knowing how to price yourself is important. It's okay to say no. And that was something that I just recently learned, probably of the last 2 or 3 years. It's okay to say no. All money isn't good money. And so you want to make sure that where you're going is going to serve you. The cost of branding, you want to think about too. Websites, headshots, socials. You want to make sure that you have a good headshot out there. You want to make sure that your websites are great and what you can look at. And I'll end with freelance life is not for the weak. I was just at Indiana University 48 hours ago. I came home for a day and a half and I was like, whoop, got to turn right back around. Did laundry, packed again, and I'm here. And so I would say I get to sleep at Christmas, which I sleep like a log. I'm on the couch, I'm watching Christmas stories, Hallmark, anything you can think of, I'm on the couch because I've worked my tail off like the whole entire year. So take care of yourself. Your mental health is important too. You want to make sure that you schedule times to do what you like. I'm a shopper, so I love to go different places and shop and eat. So I at least try to do like 2 shopping trips a month, go somewhere cool and eat. I stay right next door to New Orleans, so Cajun, seafood, that's my jam. So we make sure that we go eat and get a good meal. And so just self-care is the best care. Because a broke down, sick you is no good for anybody. That's gonna hinder that project and the projects that you have following. My first year with Bridging the Gap, I ticked so many places that I went because it was fresh. It was brand new. I was like, I can't say no. I gotta go. I was so afraid that like they're not gonna hire me if I start to say no. I'm in year 5 now, and I'm just like, no, I'm not gonna do that. Or no, I have this book and I have that book, so I can squeeze people in where I can. But take care of yourself because you just want to make sure that you're healthy and that you're okay. Here is a breakdown of kind of what expenses can look like. I just wanted to kind of show you what I get wrote off. Don't judge my DoorDash and my, listen, sometimes I get in late at night and I was like, I'm not trying to walk nowhere. I'm just gonna DoorDash it to my hotel. So don't judge that. And sometimes folks, I've gotten to the point now where they pay for my travel, hotel. Some places give me a food per diem per day. So this year will look a little different when I file taxes because I'm kind of like moving up the world. But transportation, Uber, Lyft, all of those things are written off. They're business expenses. If I stay somewhere for an extended period of time and I got to go to a grocery store, I keep those receipts. So I'm like the person that's like a bag of receipts, like handing it over, scanning them into my tax person. But those are all things that you can write off. Pixapa, Adobe, Photoshop, GoDaddy, all of those things, I need them to run the business. The thing that I wish I could write off, hair, nails, clothes, because it costs more money to go out of town, to get ready to go out of town than anything. Makeup, it falls under that like supply thing for workshops, so that's how we make that work. But you just have to think about these things. So I have a Google spreadsheet that I use throughout the year. I do it at the end of each month. So when it comes to time to file your taxes, you're not like looking for 12 months of receipts and going from there. So in conclusion, a theater degree can be used in a multitude of ways. I have good friends that are working in many different industries. A really good friend of mine, she is a wedding coordinator. She has a stage management degree. She's herding people on a wedding day. So you can look at your skills and they can translate many different ways. A freelance career is very rewarding for me. I always say, now I do want to head into academia in the next year or two, but I need the component of being able to travel still because I love talking to students and I love being able to take in questions and help them troubleshoot the things that they need. I could never do one thing. And so I love that I get to do photography, costume design, wig and makeup design, and public speak. It is a really fun process for me. And like I said, my couple of degrees that I have, I'm able to do that. And you just have to know that like the worst thing someone can tell you is no. And I know a no can be soul crushing. When I first started out, my first 6 years, I applied to work at some places and they're like, no, we don't want you, or we can't do this, or you're not a good fit for our theater. And I create Bridging the Gap, and it's one of those things where now a lot of theaters that are giving workshops, that they hire me. So it was like I found a need, filled the gap, and it opened up many doors for me. And like I said, that no, move on to the next place. There is somewhere for you within the industry, and you can find a home in doing what you love. Never feel like you need to be stuffed into one box. At this point, I probably have like a dozen boxes set up that I'm like, I hop between boxes because it's what I love to do. And you can definitely do the same. You can create your own path and go down your path. You don't have to take the path that's pre-existing already. You can make your own. So thank you so much for sitting through my talk today. And I'll take any questions that you may have. I'm happy to answer career questions, just anything you want to ask. Yes, what you got?
Do you have to bring your own makeup, or do the performers bring your own?
So in professional theater, unless it's specialty, the theater will pay for it. But I always tell performers, if this is your career, you need to have a basic, foundation kits, highlight and shadow, lip colors, eyeliners, lashes, different things like that, because you're expected to have like a base kit. Now, if I am doing bruise work or anything like that on you, I'll supply it, through the theater. But at least have a good foundation kit for yourself. When I'm working, if it's theater or film, I will lug my own kit with me. It's just because I'm very particular about like brushes, and I know the brands of foundations that I like that work well. And I'm learning airbrush right now, so that'll clear out that a lot of my stuff that I carry, and I can just take the airbrush kit with me. So I'm testing it. If I can get the eyeshadow to work correctly, like it's going on the road with me. Yes, what you got?
How long do you feel like it normally takes you to find a costume versus?
Ooh, that's a good question. I am a research person, so we have early artistic meetings before we hit production meetings. So I would say I have colors in mind after my second read of the script, and then I have an idea of what I think this person would look like. The tough part is I start working on shows before they're cast. And so sometimes I have to adjust colors. I'm big on like fit of costumes and colors of costumes. And so if I can't get, I change it. I would say, but after that second read through, I have the colors and the styles of clothes in mind. Good question. Yes, what you got?
The one thing that I can like apply to my own life is like the social media thing. I'm curious with like the red flags and the green flags when it comes to like this.
Trashing jobs. Like say you went to a theater and you had the worst experience. Now, I've worked with certain people, they shall remain nameless, that directors they're like my one and done, you know. And funny story, the director that I just recently worked with that we didn't vibe well, didn't mesh well, our styles were very different. A theater that's prominent in her area called me and they said, hey, I said, who's the director? It was said person. And I was like, thank you so much. I'm gonna respectfully decline. That's all I had to say. But if I went to social media and trashed this person and said, oh my God, I just had the worst experience with such and such, and they did this, and that. And so people will get on social media and do that. And it's one of those things where it's like, oh, well, you know, if we don't vibe well, our styles are different. Like, I don't want this person on social media, like, trashing me. It's that mostly is what I've seen as a red flag. I firmly respect people's difference in opinion, that whole list of things that may happen. But it's like that, how well do you handle, like, a job you didn't like? Or, you know, things like that. So, yeah. Maturity, yes, that's the perfect term. How mature can you be? Yes. Any other questions? Yes, in the back.
Having been in so many different costume spaces, how do you recommend that a student of color advocate for themselves if they feel like they are not getting what they need?
Yes. First things first. If I know working with like faculty and different things like that can be nerve-wracking when you start to look at design and costume and hair, but advocate for yourself. If you can talk to the person that designed the show, you can lay things out as a, you know, you gave me this design for my hair. I know that I might have 4B or 4C or what, you know, different things. My hair might not hold this style well. Are there any alternatives? Or I noticed that my foundation is off, or the colors that you gave me don't match my skin tone. Is there room in the budget for alternatives? If you don't get the reaction you need, I would go to a stage manager or a production manager and talk to them about any problems that you may have. And they will usually run it to like a director or someone like that to talk to them about it. And I always tell people, we're in a collaborative effort. If there's something you're not comfortable with, don't do it. You know, just do not do it. Ask for alternatives. Ask for, you know, is there any additional research of photos or anything like that that can work with you and what you have? And I tell students across the board, but especially my BIPOC students, that you're not a problem. It's one of those things where people feel like, oh, if I ask a question, nobody's gonna ever want to work with me again. And that's not the truth. They're the problem if that's how they feel. It's what I always say. So advocate for yourself. Talk to that faculty member or talk to the costume designer or wig person if you're able. If you don't get the response you want from them or you get resistance, go to the stage manager, go to the production person and talk to them, and hopefully they can better serve you and help you. Yes, what you got?
How do you navigate burnout with such a busy schedule?
Vacation. Vacation. I do at least, and I'm getting better as I did a 48-hour turnaround. So sometimes it just happens that way. But I schedule in things for myself. I try to take 2 to 3 jobs away, maybe a month. Maybe it's down to 2 now because I'm getting better about spreading people out. And I do stuff that I like. My mom lives in town, we shop. Like I said, I'm a shopper. I get my hair and nails done frequently. I love a good massage, you know, and I go unplugged. I try to go unplugged a lot too because at Bridging the Gap, I get 40 to 50 emails a day. And so I have to like power through those emails. And I was like, okay, if I can get halfway through by noon, like I'm gonna go grab some lunch, sit down without a phone or a computer. So you schedule in what you like. And like I said, self-care is the best care for you. So that looks different for everybody. I'm getting ready to take clay and pottery classes in December that I'm excited about. I gotta cut my nails, but that's something that like I've always wanted to explore pottery. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take it over Christmas break because I'll be home. So just finding what you like and what you know you want to do, that'll help cancel out some of the burnout. And I know when you're young or you're first starting out, you feel like you have to take every job, but still take care of you. Factor in some things that you like to.
Thank you.
Yes, behind you.
Okay. First of all, thank you.
Yeah.
When you get into that area of like, these are things that I want to do for pleasure. How do you find markers when you're like, too much pleasure out of this budgeting thing?
Yeah, so of course, you know, money's always the thing. And I have some friends that will do, you know, one activity a month, and if that's a bang-up weekend somewhere, that's great too. But like I said, you pick what you can, money is important, so you pick what you can afford, and what you can do. And you, if it's once a month, if it's like beginning or end of the month, some people prefer to do things at the end of the month because that's like, I've worked all month and I can look forward to this. Or they do it at the beginning of the month to set themselves up for like the work that's coming ahead.
Thank you.
All right.
So thank you all so much. We are out of time. I would like to invite everyone who's around this afternoon. Jerrilyn is going to present her portfolio to us this afternoon at 2:30 in D207 upstairs. So please join us for that this afternoon. Join me in thanking Jerrilyn for her expertise in